just popping on to say hello and welcome. This video is just kind of introduction to where I'm at with using Suminagashi with my art and how I'm trying to explore the technique. It's a little bit random, I'll be honest, but it is a beginning. I had to start somewhere. It's kind of a starting point to how I will be sharing other techniques with you, from the natural dyes, how I treat the papers, to the alum washes that I will be putting on it. So we'll be walking through that in the other videos, but I just wanted to start out a little bit, kind of explain what I like about it, what I love about it, and how I used it in my art. So that's it. Whew, that wasn't so hard. I've been struggling with this intro for a while, but I'm just gonna put this on here. My hair's a little greasy today. I don't have anything scripted, but here I am, and I hope you enjoy the video. Suminagashi is a Japanese marbling technique. It originated roughly in the 11th and 12th century in Japan. I just thought I'd pull out this book that my father gifted me a few years back. And I think he accidentally Suminagashi'd, or this fell into his water bath somehow, because it is quite water damaged. But it has some great examples of early Suminagashi where you can see the pattern was applied to the paper in the marbling technique, and then calligraphy was done over the top. Here's a fan. You can see it faintly underneath there as well. And even on this page where there's metallic dust put inside. This book by Anne Chambers is a great resource. I've found it very difficult to find books on this process. So I highly recommend this book if you can get your hands on it and you're interested in this process. This is a good one. She goes into the technique, and she does touch on some more non-traditional techniques as well. Looking at Suminagashi, looking at the traditional Suminagashi, I loved its smokiness. And I wanted to just pull out this scroll that my father did to show you as well, where he did the Suminagashi pattern, the steam coming up from this green tea bowl. First, he did this light gray marbling, and then he painted on the tea bowl. And I just loved it. I loved the simplicity of it, but also the fact that you couldn't control it. And I just really interested me, this process. How could I incorporate it into my art? How could I use this with what I'm doing? Yeah, at the same time, as much as I love the smokiness of it and the faintness of it, I was always trying to figure out, how can I make it bolder, crisper, darker? Why is this falling? Why does the ink fall off? Here's an example just on some copy paper, very faint. And this is probably the result you'll get if you use just a simple paper or a simple rice paper. It really can vary. So I wanted to look and see how I could control it a little bit more, get some stronger, bolder marks in there, and just play around with it in a non-traditional way and see where I could push it. And that's what we'll be doing in this course, and that's what I'm so excited to share with you. These papers have been dyed, and we'll be doing this as well. These are black beans, and we brought out the blues. We have some avocado inks. I did some tea dyeing, and so it's fun to play with different shades. And again, my goal was to get these really strong blacks. Strong blacks that I could later incorporate into my collage pieces, little art books. You can see it here with a photograph and some little pieces of monoprint. I was also having fun incorporating it with more abstract pieces, with acrylics and inks and watercolors. What could I do with this? Does it necessarily have to be on its own? I don't think so. I think it's fun to rip up, play with, distort, but I really wanted to get those blacks black. So that was my goal, and that's what we'll be working on as well. So let's jump in, and we're going to take a look at some of the papers that are best suited for Suminagashi. So as far as the paper you would want to use, I would recommend starting with something that's lighter and airier and most importantly absorbent. So you wouldn't want to start with a really thick watercolor hot pressed paper that has been sized. Sizing is a gelatin, or usually some form of gelatin, that can be incorporated into the pulp of the paper when they make it, as well as on the surface. That doesn't allow water to absorb very quickly into watercolor paper. For example, I have found if I did want to use a thicker cardstock, this is a very natural, handmade white paper that's made in Italy. I know not everyone can get their hands on it, and in fact, very few can, but it just absorbs so wonderfully. I was able to get really great blacks and nice contrast with this paper. So possibly if you could find a handmade white paper, one that doesn't have sizing or a lot of things added to it, that might give you some really nice results. It's all about experimenting at this point. One of the fun materials I've been working with are tea bags. These are extra large tea bags. They came in a box like this. I think they're from Germany, I don't know, but you can find so many different, you'd be surprised at how many tea bags are online, and different companies sell tea bags. This material is hemp and celluloid, a cellulose fiber. And I just had fun opening these up, taking them apart, and they almost have a little scroll-like shape to them themselves. Again, great for Suminagashi. I also had a lot of fun with the coffee filters. These are a pale brown. You might be able to find a bright white. Of course, there's the traditional, which would be a Japanese rice paper. Again, really fun and creates really airy results. Here's with just a very fine Japanese rice paper. This was done on one of those tea bags that's been opened up. I think I'm out of them here in terms of examples, but just a plain tea bag from home. I'm not sure. I had some very tiny ones and they just came out so sweet and just lovely and adorable. These are pieces of tissue paper, which will be dyeing as well. I just have a stack. You do have to be a little bit careful. This I can see is a shiny part of the tissue paper, which is not going to work very well for the Suminagashi, whereas this is the matte side, and that will absorb much, much easier. I also used old book pages. This came out fainter, but again, we'll be experimenting with that. And just saying, try some different papers and some different sizes, maybe vintage papers, tea bags, lighter, gauzier papers and fibers, coffee filters. There's so many different things to try. Again, I would avoid anything that has been treated. Obviously not a Yupo paper that's basically pure plastic. It will never absorb anything. You want something that will absorb. This was some type of masking, I wouldn't call it a tape because it's not sticky, but I did some experiments with it as well, and it had some really nice results. So even looking around in your hardware store or your kitchen store with a different eye, you might be able to find some papers to work with that are just non-traditional, but I think you should give them a shot.